What keeps you up at night? Not so much with dread, but more with purpose. I asked Damany Daniel from the Event Nerd that question when we met up at Slow and Steady Coffee in Oak Cliff. This is the Mighty Good Podcast, a series of quick conversations with changemakers who are making our world a better place. I'm Rob Shearer. All right, Damany.
Yes, sir.
What keeps you up at night? It's a sense of purpose.
I really like when people can. I like people to gather. I like gathering people, whether it's by like the ones, the dozens, the hundreds, or the thousands. I like getting people together, and so it's like, especially when I'm working on a project, it's like, how are we making sure that when these people, whomever these people are in that particular context, are getting together, like, how do we make sure that they're getting together, that like they're walking away from this experience, not necessarily being changed, because that sounds extremely arrogant, but I don't know how to say it, but being changed by the encounter, or having an encounter. So I think that's one of the things that keeps me up. I think one of the other things that keeps me up is, if you think about it from Dallas' perspective, is that like, how do we shift the perception of Dallas, specifically as it surrounds a place that people can gather, a place that people can create, a place that people can be a part of something that's other than outside of and bigger than themselves. So those are the things I think that a lot of times keep me up. And then just generally, you know, are my children going to go to the right school? Are they going to, what are they going to do? There's all that stuff that I think is inherent to any parent.
Existential dread.
Yeah, Sunday scaries on Monday, things like that.
Do you think of that gathering work as impact work? Like, do you think of your work through the lens of like, I'm gathering these people with an idea of what could happen as it relates to Dallas being
Yeah, and you know, all the work that we do is corporate, right? We do a lot of corporate. We do some nonprofit, but a lot of it is corporate. And so I think, a lot of it is centered around, I have this idea that if you go to an event, whether it's a concert, a conference, a trade show, a party, whatever, if you from across the room see someone who looks completely different than A, you, and B, what you think someone that likes the thing that you like would or should look like. It's like, this is an easy analogy in the current climate, right? You're a Swiftie, right? Well, I might be a Swiftie. I don't know any of your music. My son's a Swiftie. But you can look across a room and see someone who like, oh, you like Taylor Swift too? I didn't see that coming. And then so you walk up to that person and you start having a conversation with them, and it becomes a conversation around what's your favorite song? What's your favorite concert that you've been to? And then you have that one thing in common. And so if you have that one thing in common, it's like, well, what else could we have in common that we wouldn't have gotten to if we didn't know about this one thing that we had in common? So I think it's extremely impactful because it gives people the opportunity to have shared experiences that they would not have known to have otherwise, right? Because there's one thing, you can look for these shared experiences where you're going in to have transformative experiences happen. But when you have these kind of serendipitous moments where people come together and they discover, oh, wait, we have that one thing in common, but because of that one thing in common, we also started talking about the second thing and this third thing and this fifth thing. What else could we discover in the course of that discovery?
And it challenges the stories you maybe are already telling yourself about that person. That makes me think of that whole conversation right now about third spaces. And I had not thought of your work as creating third spaces, but I think it is. Like, they may be temporary. They're not permanent third spaces.
Well, but that's the beautiful thing about it. It's like, so Priya Parker, in her book, The Art of Gathering, which if you haven't read it, you absolutely should. And so she studies gathering, right? And in The Art of Gathering, one of the things she talked about is this idea that when people connect, it has more meaning when it is time boxed, when there are parameters around it, because it automatically imbues it with a sense of purpose because you only have this moment.
So you primarily work with for-profits, but I will say one of the coolest events I've ever been to in Dallas was a project you did for a nonprofit, which was the Big Thought Questlove brunch.
That's good times. That's good times.
Talk to me a little bit about, what do you think nonprofits are missing when they don't expand their imagination when it comes to the chicken dinner gala? Like, it seems like half the nonprofits in town do some sort of gala event, but they're pretty by the book.
Yeah. I mean, it's a model that works it works because you've got legacy. If you're using it as a philanthropic or as a fundraising thing, you've got legacy donors who are gonna donate to you regardless. They're gonna give you money because they've always given you money, and we're moving consistently and continually into an experience economy where I was talking to someone this morning, and I said, if I go to an event, I'm exchanging at least two things with you. One is my money. I've paid a ticket price, a cost of entry. Two is my time. I am paying you with 2 hours, 4 hours, 3 hours of my time. What are you giving me for that?
Right.
There's this model that says that, well, I'm a nonprofit. I'm doing this great work for the community. And you are. And so what? So what? Yeah. There are other people doing great things for the community. Why should I care about the experience that you're having more than the experience that this person is having? Or why should I care about your experience and the experience that this dinner that I'm going to over here? So I think one of the things that people are forgetting is that people at their core want to have experiences. And out there in the world, they're having them. They walk by murals on the street. They walk by public art. They go to jazz clubs and concerts and movies, and they eat at really great restaurants. And then they come into your event and it sucks. And they're there because they have to be there, because if they're not there, then they don't care about whatever the thing is that your nonprofit is supporting or fighting for. But it's like, yeah, but like out there, I care. So what would happen if the experiences that were being created inside the ballrooms and the event venues and the four nonprofits were actually things that people gave a shit about? Were actually produced in a way that were engaging, not to the detriment at all of what it is that your mission is, but to the benefit, because it's pointing people through the eyes of beauty and art and fun back to your mission, and not just saying, hey, here's our mission, you should believe in it. Like, people don't care. People don't care. So
it could have been an email.
It could have been an email. So I think one of the things that nonprofits are missing in this constant cycle is, if people, would you go to this event, whatever the event is, if it weren't tied to your charity?
Right.
Like, if you were just like, I got nothing to do on a Thursday. I heard about this really great dinner with a party band, and it seems as if they have some silent auction items. Oh, I don't like golf, but I will bid on this golf retreat because it's what I'm supposed. Like, would you do that?
Right.
If the answer is no, then why are you making me do it?
I know your kids are in Dallas ISD. Mm-hmm. What do you think about the district?
I think that I'm interested to see what the new superintendent does. I don't think she's had enough time to do anything. I don't mean that in a rude way.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's early.
It's super early. Mm-hmm. I think that like I come from a family of educators. My mother was in the New York City public school system as a teacher for a long time. And I recognize that within any large institution, there's always going to be places that are great and places that don't see the same level of greatness, and that's frustrating. We've been fortunate that our kids have been at really great places. They've been with the exception of like one, they've been at really great schools with teachers who actually cared and were creative in their attempts and their approaches to reach out to them. But I also recognize that there are whole swaths of people and areas where that is not the case, where the resources don't exist, can't exist, and the parents that are there can't work. Like, I've been fortunate that every place that we've been, my wife especially is like, no, I'm getting in there. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna go become the PTO president. I'm gonna run the events. I'm gonna do a fundraiser where the fundraiser raises 3 times as much as anyone has ever seen in this school, in the history of the school, right? I've been fortunate that we've been able to jump in that way and continually resource the places that we've been. And there are other places where the parents don't have the time, the parents don't have the skill set, the parents don't have the ability to do that. And they're just like, I need you to teach my kid. I need to send my kid to you, and then you send them back to me. That's the exchange. And so in those environments, what happens? Those kids may or may not have access to the exact same level of resources because there weren't people outside of the district who could help them get there. So that's why things like school choice are extremely concerning, right? Because sure, there's a choice. There's a $10,000 choice for something that costs more than $10,000.
Right.
And then that $10,000 is coming from whatever insert name of ISD, where students are typically resourced to the tune of $6,000. And so there's this $4,000 gap that we're not making up over here, but you're giving them more. But that's actually not paying for anything. And so what are we actually getting?
Right.
So we're actually getting nothing over here in exchange for taking away what little something we have over here.
When the argument that was made for charters was we need competition. ISDs don't have competition. Competition is going to make everybody better. And now I feel like we're adding another layer of like that. We need choice.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea of we need competition works in a free market business environment. So are we then saying that we are making our children and the education of them solely a business decision? That's also problematic to me, because if you're not, then they become the product, or they're the thing that are being consumed, or they're the currency. They're the things that are being traded. And so it doesn't, I agree that stagnation is a real thing, especially within institutions that have been around for a very long time. And I'll also say that I'm not an educator, but is there some middle ground between, like, let's trade everything for competition, because if you're competitive, you've been under-resourced for the entirety of this existence. We're now going to give you competition, but we haven't actually trained you how to be in the midst of this competition, but you're now competing against these people whose sole mission in life is to be well-funded and to be the best. It doesn't track. The public schools can't keep up with these charter schools that already had all this outside funding and say, well, see, public schools just aren't competitive. Well, no shit, because that's not the model that we built for them however many years ago.
Although I'll say, so voters in Dallas passed a big bond for Dallas ISD a couple years ago. And I recently went to visit one of the career hubs. They're building 4 career hubs around the city. And after walking through that, I'm convinced that nobody can compete with Dallas ISD when it comes to facilities like that. It's got automotive, HVAC, robotics, aviation. It's got all these little spaces where they're giving high school students access to additional learning. And I think, like, you're not going to get that at a charter. You're definitely not going to get that at a private. So I love seeing the district figuring out how do we leverage our size to do something that nobody else can.
No, I love that, and I am hopeful. I think that we can. Yeah, I'll say that I'm hopeful. That's where I'm at with the ISD.
All right, Damany, what's the hardest truth about impact work that no one talks about?
That you can't care about it all. I was speaking with a group of young professionals. I say that now because I'm over 40, and they asked me something similar, like, how do you care about these things? And I said, I care about them because I can't care about all of them. Climate justice is a real thing. Racial justice is a real thing. Healthcare justice is a real thing. Maternal justice is a real thing. Like, all these things are real, and there are issues with all of them. And I can care about them, but I can't impact all of them. And you can have this moment where you're trying to be woke enough to engage all of it, and by engaging all of it, you're not actually being effective at any of it. I have friends who are very heavily invested in climate justice and all those justices that I just listed, and I love talking to them, but I am not going to be in a place where I can have an intelligent conversation about climate justice with you. Like, if you would be like, what do you think about the state of global warming in the world? And I'd be like, I mean, I think it's bad.
Right.
But if you want to talk to me about how do we make arts more accessible, if you want to talk to me about how do we empower people to pursue their most creative self, like, I'll do that all day. And I think if we had people who, instead of feeling bad, and I find myself doing this as well, instead of feeling bad about not being able to do more about all of the things, if you could say, I can't do all of the things, but I can do this, or these 2 things, and you do them well because you are an expert in it, because you really dive deep into it, I think those 2 things are better for it. And then the two things that you're passionate about become better for it, and on and on and on and on and on. As opposed to this diluted experience across 6, there's a concentrated experience for me across 2, for you across 2, for Susan across 2. And then all of a sudden, all of those things see an impact.
It's a symphony.
It is. And I think that's the biggest thing is like, stop trying to care about it all.
You're going to play the bassoon. I'm going to play the French horn.
And if you're doing what you're supposed to,
Yeah.
and I'm doing what I'm supposed to,
Yeah.
it works. Period.
Thanks for joining us on the Mighty Good Podcast. Hope you found some inspiration. Please like and subscribe and follow wherever you find your podcasts or videos.